Streaming. Welcome everyone to this week in Svelte episode 111. And today we have also a co-host, and we're going to do a bit of a chat about AI. Stanislav, aka Koromov. I don't know if I pronounce it correctly.
Something like that.
Fellow Svelte ambassador. He's been doing the god work for Svelte and AI, and he's gonna talk all about it. Today we're gonna chat a bit about how to use AI effectively in Svelte. But first, obviously,
we had a little talk about AI. It was a couple of months ago, I think, or maybe just slightly longer. But there's so much stuff happening that you just have to keep it updated every couple of months and see.
Yeah, a couple of months in AI is basically, I don't know, like a lifetime nowadays.
Yeah, truly.
So we need to keep it up to date. But again, first, let's actually deep dive into the changelog, because we have also a bunch of very interesting stuff. Let me zoom in a bit more here so that you can see better. And we can start from Svelte 5.36.8, which is keep affecting the graph if it has an abort controller. So this was just a small thing. Basically, you now can get the current abort controller with get abort controller in Svelte, and you can use that if you want to clean up your fetch function or event listeners, because that abort controller will get aborted the moment the effect reruns. However, there was a problem where if you don't have any dependency inside an effect, we actually remove that effect from the reactivity graph so that it doesn't waste memory. But if it had an abort controller, we actually need to keep it in the graph, because we need to invoke that abort controller even if the effect does not have any dependency. We also have a bit of a chore, which is switch payload.out to an array. So if you're not familiar with the internal Svelte, this may seem completely out of the box to you, but payload is what we pass around to construct your server-side rendered component. So when you call render, we push strings into a payload, and then that's the HTML that you render. And now it has been switched to an array for a good reason, because this paves the way to for the work that is happening on async SSR, which is something that I'm very excited about, because async, which landed last week in Svelte, it's already pretty cool. But the moment we can actually SSR using async, then I'll switch everything over.
And do you know, Pablo, is async SSR gonna use some sort of streaming, like we have streaming promises now, or is it gonna actually wait until all the promises resolve and then kind of return the initial payload?
Honestly, I don't know yet. I think the goal is still probably in the first draft, it will just await everything. yeah, I think it will just await everything, but then probably we definitely want something to stream HTML. It's just something that like not always, not every browser supports, not every. So I think it should be something that Elliot is working on this. So I actually don't have the full context here, but we definitely want to be able to stream. But I also think that we want to be able to not stream if like.
Yeah.
If
I
you
mean,
know
both
that,
options would be amazing because I don't think there is such a thing as like out of order standard for streaming.
yeah, correct. I think right now the only way to do out of order streaming in HTML is with the brand new declarative shutdown. Like I think with that you can do out of order streaming of HTML, but it's kind of a mess to set up. So it's not really. I don't think you can actually do it. But that's a possibility. So maybe for the future, let's hope, because that would be cool. We have Svelte 5.36.9, which is don't re-execute the ride with no dependency on tear down. I mean, I think this speaks by itself. So if a derived has no dependency, when you go on tear down, it's not re-executed. So we don't waste performance. Disallow export foo as default in script module. So a script module, if you're not aware, it's a way so that you can actually have JavaScript code in the module of a compiled component. So if I switch to the playground for a second, I mean, we already kind of talked about this previously, but you can do script module. And if you take a look at the compiled code of this, let's say I do console.log here, you can see that if you take a look at the compiled code, this is here basically. And so this is nice. And you can use the script module even to export something from a component. Like, for example, you can do, I don't know, const default value is equal 42, and then you can do export default value. But this might be a bug.
No, it's the misspelling.
I misspelled. I knew it. Default value. So as you can see, like you're declaring a variable and then you're exporting that variable here. And obviously you can also do it in line. You can do export this thing and do like this. However, as you can see, like from a component, the default export is the component itself. So if you do export default something, export default const something is equal 43. I don't think you can do that. Let's say that you can do this. You get an error that says a component cannot have a default export, and because otherwise it will conflict with the component itself. However, you could have done something like this, default value as default before, and now you can't anymore, because obviously otherwise it will conflict. So yeah. Move ownership validation into async component body. So ownership validation is something that we do at dev time to verify that you have like the ability to mutate a prop, for example, and to mutate, not reassign. However, one problem is that when you, so let's say that you have let is equal to assign props, let's say object, and you do function change this, you do object dot stuff is equal to 42. If you switch to dev mode, you can see that basically when you reassign, we have this $ ownership validation dot mutation that is doing the check to verify that you can actually mutate. And that, again, this is only in dev mode. However, that's another change. When you are using async inside a Svelte component, so let's say I do await 42, you can see that since the main body, you need to use it in the script itself. Const stuff is equal await 42. When you have await in the main body, since the component function cannot be async, we create a body function that is async, and that is your body, your instance body, basically. The problem is that this code, this $ ownership validator, was still generated inside this function, and then it was used inside this, and so it was not there, and now it's fixed. Okay, let's go ahead and let's see, allow async destructure derived. So you can destructure a derived, and it was not possible to destructure async derived, and now you can. Move store setup cleanup outside of async component body. This is kind of the same problem of ownership validation. Prevent batches from getting intertwined. You can see that by like this very English word. This was Rich PR. He loves to be so precise with his word. But yeah, basically this is batches are how async work in Svelte. So whenever you are committing a change, it doesn't immediately do it. It creates batches so that if there is some async work that needs to happen, while that async work is happening, a new batch can be created. And this basically allows us to go back and forth between the batches, so that if you are changing some unrelated state, that state can still be updated immediately. And then when the new state gets updated, we can go back, reset the old value, and then rewind the new. It's a bit complicated. I don't even know very well how it works. The problem is that like these batches, it's a very complicated thing. And as you can see, those batches were a bit intertwined. And so like, if you had multiple batches, it could end up with a situation where state from a different batch was applied to a previous batch. And with this PR, Rich fixed it. Move capture signal to legacy module. So capture signal, this is just a chore. Like capture signal is a utility function inside Svelte that basically just, since in legacy mode, you need to, like, for example, if you are reading from an object, you need to read all the signals to get reactivity to work just like it was in legacy mode. This capture signal just iterate over that array, and it has been now moved to legacy mode. Ensure subscription are picked up correctly by derives. I don't know what this is about, but I suppose there was a problem with derives. Oh, no, I know what it is about. Sorry. This is for create subscriber. So create subscriber, basically, if you are, this is a bit complicated to explain, but basically like the problem was that if you were using create subscriber and then you unregistered by the last subscriber, so what happened is that the subscribers would remove itself, and the version of the subscriber was not increased when all the subscribers were removed. And so what it could have happened is that if you then read the subscription within a derived for the first time after a new subscriber is happening, the version was like still the old value, and so the derived were not picking up the new value of the subscription. So yeah, it's a bit complicated.
You're right, Paolo, that does sound complicated.
Yeah, I mean, it's really not super complicated at the end of the day, but it requires a lot of knowledge about how derived work, about how create subscriber work, and in general. So it's a bit complex to explain.
Do you use create subscriber a lot, Paolo? I think I have never used it.
I love create subscriber, because basically, for those who are not aware, let's actually explore a bit create subscriber. But basically, you can do import from Svelte reactivity. And what this unlocks you to do is to, if you have an event system of some sort, you can basically get the this is a way to get that event system in sync with Svelte without using an effect first. So because obviously, if you want to sync with an event system, you need to register an event listener. And if you register an event listener, you need to clean it up. So if you're building some sort of reactive class that, again, listen to, for example, let's create a very simple class scroll Y, for example, so that this kind of already exists in Svelte. So, but let's say that you want to create a scroll Y that basically sync with windows.scroll Y. If you wanted to do without create subscriber, you had to do something like this. So you have to say constructor $effect, and then you need to say window.on add event listener scroll, and then whenever you scroll, you say you have a state variable, which is current, for example, assign state, and then you register the event listener, and then you do this dot current is equal to window.scroll Y, and then you need to unregister this, so you have to do const controller, and I mean you get the point. And another disadvantage of all of this is that since you are using effect in a constructor, then it means that you cannot use this class outside of a Svelte component. You need to use it inside of a Svelte component. With create subscriber, you can do something much nicer, because you can do subscribe, and then you can say this dot subscribe is equal to create subscriber, and then you pass the function, and this function will receive an update method, and then you can just do this dot. You can even use on from reactivity, actually from events. So you can just do return on window scroll update. So basically this is saying, okay, whenever there is a scroll event, please call this update function. And this update function, what it does is that if you call this.subscribe in a function or a getter, it will make that function rerun inside the reactivity of Svelte whenever update is called. And so you can do get current, and you can return this window.scroll Y. So you don't even have to have a state variable. You literally just read window.scroll Y, and
that does sound a lot cleaner.
And you can do this dot subscribe. And the nice advantage of this is that once you do this function here will be executed only if you read this in a reactive context. So if I have this in a file, which, by the way, you don't even have to be at .svelte.js file at this point. So you can just have scroll y.js, and you do this, and you export class scroll y. The nice thing again is that let's say that I do import from scroll y.js scroll y. If I create scroll is equal to new scroll y, if I create one of these and then I do button on click console.log scroll.current, log like this. And let's also add a div with a ginormous amount of div, you can say height px. So as you can see, let's say that I scroll a bit and the button should be position fixed. Otherwise I lose it. So let's say that you do something like this. Whoa.
Fixed.
Right.
You need the, yeah.
Let's say that I do something like this. As you can see, when I log, this.subscribe is not a function. What? Is another misspell? What?
No, I don't see what's wrong.
Constructor. Constructor. Oh boy, I am misspelling a bunch today. So if I do this, you can see that when I log, I actually logged the right value, but I actually never registered this listener. So if I do console.log here, registering listener, I'm not registering the listener at all. And the reason why I don't need to register the listener is because this class is never invoked in a reactive context. So really, I don't need to keep it in sync. I can just read window.scrollY when it works. I don't need to notify anything when this thing. But if I do this,
yeah,
let's say that I do this and I say scroll.counter.current. Now it's reading that in a reactive context, and so I'm registering a listener, and so this means that whenever this changes, the value also changes, and Svelte re-updates.
Right. And in this example, you use the Svelte events, but you can use, I guess, any event source you want.
You can if you instead of do I'm just using it for convenience, but you can also do const abort is equal new abort controller, and then you can say window.add event listener scroll update, and then you can pass the signal. I mean, in this case, it was maybe easier to just use update, but it's fine.
No, but I understand you might have some real-time system or whatever that sends events.
And so you can do this, and then you can do abort.abort. And so if you do this still works perfectly fine. And so obviously you can imagine that instead of having a listener on window, you could have a listener on whatever event target you have.
Yeah.
So that's pretty nice. So and that's one of my favorite features of Svelte.
Yeah, that is cool.
And now it works better. So let's see, 5.36.14, keep input in sync when binding updated via effect. So this is another thing. So input with async Svelte is something that it is kind of like hard-coded to work, in the sense that we literally made an exception for input, because when you are typing on an input, you want that input to be updated immediately. So you don't want any async work to mess with your input. And this was a leftover bug. So if you were updating a binding, it was not updating the input. So rename from form accept charset attribute. This is just a typing issue. Prevent infinite async loop is always good when you.
That sounds pretty good, yeah.
Yeah, so it's always. So
I've had sync loops, but I've never had async loops so far.
Yeah. Exclude the writes from effect abort and rescheduling. So this is another kind of complicated bug, but basically, let me see if I can explain it in a way that is. So yeah, basically, we fixed the bug that was a very edge case. Basically, I think I've explained this before. So the point is, when you make a change to a signal, to a state, we basically mark the whole root as dirty, right? So you, not the whole root actually, but we basically schedule the root that is associated with a specific signal. So when you have this signal here, which is a leaf of the tree, whenever this changes, we march the DOM up and we schedule this root effect, so that then when we schedule it, we can march the whole DOM and we can collect all the effects that we need to run. And the problem is that we basically, instead of filtering out the effect by dirty while we are collecting them, we filter them after the fact. So the edge case was that we had a bug report where when you update this effect is causing this effect above himself to become dirty. And if it was inside an if, oh, it's a very complicated thing. You don't want to know. Trust me, it's a mess.
I can tell that you work on Svelte core.
Yeah, I mean, this actually, like, I spent so much time on this issue, and in the end, like, it was actually like, this is the change that I wrote, but then we found a better fix. Rich found a better fix, but I spent so much time in this issue. I mean, in this issue and in the issue that like predated, and it's one of the most absurd thing that I did, because even just the reproduction was like 5 files, and there was effect that was triggering another effect. So it was so complex to understand that I don't even want to think about it anymore. Preserve dirty status for deferred effect. So again, if there is an effect and there is a sync work happening, that effect is deferred. So it's okay, let's do it later, basically. And but the dirty status was changing, and so since it was changing, basically effects that were dirty were not marked as dirty anymore because they were delayed, and so now it's fixed. As you can see, like, you can tell that like the async branch is still experimental. Like, there's a bunch of fix about the async branch. Don't update a focused input with values from its own past. Again, about inputs and async. Don't destroy effect roots created inside the derived. This was another wild reproduction where someone was creating an effect root inside a derived, and that effect root was destroyed when the derived changes. And technically it should not. Like, if you create an effect root inside the derived, that should stay, I think, yeah.
But it sounds really like a nightmare, because you have to, the derived is gone, but the effect has to stay somehow without
I think actually, like, it was not complex to fix. I think Simon fixed it, so I don't want to say that it was not complex, because maybe it was, but like the wild part was the reproduction, because like Simon basically jumped on a call with this guy that there is this poor guy, I can't even remember the name, but he has a library. I think he has, it's called Svelte CMS, and I've seen him like almost every release of Svelte. We broke Svelte CMS for some reason. To be fair, like, he's doing a lot of weird shit there. Like, again, he's creating a root inside the derived and then creating a stage, and so he's doing a lot of weird shit. And but unfortunately for him, like, a bunch of times we break something for him, and so Simon actually said, "Okay, let's jump on a call. Let's try to figure out what is going on with your project. Let's see if we can fix it." And in the end, they realized that this was the problem. So it was creating an effect root inside the destroy, and it was creating an infinite loop because it was destroyed. That's it for Svelte. Let's see, because we should have 2 new releases for SvelteKit. One is very exciting. So first, we have fix correctly set URL when navigating during ongoing navigation. So navigating, basically this is inside the state, the navigator state. the URL was set wrongly. But this is.
Can I just ask? Does this fix when you like navigate quickly several times in a row? Is it that edge case that it's trying to solve?
I don't know. Correctly, when navigating. Oh, might be. Yeah, when you are navigating already and then you navigate again, probably the URL was not set correctly. I think you're right. But I was switching to this because this is very exciting, because better type safety for page root ID, page params, page URL path name, and various other places, because we now have officially way to, like, we have a root ID type. And this basically, like, now every root in your SvelteKit application is actually like strongly typed. So you can use resolve or asset if you want inside your application, so that you can say, okay, I want to navigate to this route, and you can pass parameters to that route, and you can so you actually get type safety out of it. I want to say, let's see if we have we should have the documentation about it, because resolve probably writing resolve probably here. Yeah. So yeah, you can basically do something like this. Is for an asset. So if you have something in the static folder, even that is type safe. So you can say, okay, I want to load this asset here, and you get the full type safety here. Assets. Okay. And then you have resolve, which is the same thing, but for roots. So you have resolve, and then you can, like, you literally get type safety here for blog, hello world, and blog slug. And you also get type safety for like the params. So if it expects a certain params, you need to pass that params.
This looks super cool. But what does resolve actually, like, what do you get back from resolve?
The string. So
okay.
So you get these, and then, so in this case, it's just
you would put
blog,
it into goto or something, or
yeah, you can basically do href blog hello world basically
and have it type safe. That is really cool.
Yeah, this is super cool.
And it's gonna stop, like, I know a lot of people have problems when they're like pre-rendering and they accidentally make links to like pages that don't exist. Then they get like a build error from that. But now it's gonna probably, because it's not gonna really be possible to make an incorrect link if you do it correctly.
Oh yeah, that's, I mean, in general, yeah, that is an issue. Like when you are pre-rendering, if you link to the wrong page, that is what is happening. But in general, I think it's nice. Like even if you are not pre-rendering, but you have a link to something that doesn't exist in your application, that's no bueno. And so instead, you can use this so that you know that. Let me see. Can we?
Do you know if it will be possible to have that also work in normal links inside the Svelte templates? Like if I go like /foo and foo does not exist, that it would like throw an error, for example.
So, what do you mean? In the sense that
if you don't call these functions, you just make a
unfortunately, no. And there's a reason for that. Is because I also tried to do something similar with forms, but basically TypeScript does not support this thing. Like, so you can have a type. So we have a type for href, and href expects a string, and you can have, technically we could override that with your roots, your parameter, like this resolved args, not resolved args, with root ID. Technically, I think you can do it, but then, I mean, you kind of have a problem because, well, first, what if you don't want to link to something internal and you want to link to something external? But that could also be probably fixed. But the problem is that it also depends on your current page, right? So basically, you would need to have different auto-completion.
Unless it starts with a slash. Then
Exactly.
it will be global.
Which is probably
right.
kind of the same thing but
no, I'm just thinking ahead, because of how good the Svelte is with accessibility.
Absolutely.
But I totally get it. This is a huge improvement. I'm gonna
and by the way,
implement it right away.
We should give a huge shout out to ZYC. I can never pronounce his name. Zikushuet, I think, which is a member of Svelte Austria and a good member of the Svelte community. And he worked on a Vite plugin to basically generate this code a little different. And then he started working on APR on SvelteKit, and then long overdue because we got lost in the track. But so he did a lot of the work here, and so huge shout out. And I hope I pronounced his name correctly. All right, so so we have this minor change here, and so let's see. We have new adapter Cloudflare, support asset-only worker in Wrangler validation. All right. We have a new adapter Vercel, update dependency Vercel NFT. And NFT,
is it the NFT or is
no,
it something else?
It's another NFT. If I'm not mistaken, I think I've used this library before, and basically it's basically a library that allow adapter Vercel to basically tree shake everything that you don't actually use. So when you publish on Vercel, you are just there is a subset of files. So if you have a file that you're not importing, it will not be included in the bundle, basically. If I'm not mistaken, it should be this one. Or secretly, every SvelteKit application is mining Bitcoins in your server, and that's why Svelte can afford 3 maintainers. That's a joke for if anybody is listening to this.
Allegedly.
Exactly. It's allegedly. Finish removing recently added project service config. I think this was a problem. So we added this project service because it would make things faster for ESLint, and then I think it actually realized that it made things slower. So I think we removed it after, but I'm not really deep into this, so I don't know. Let's see. We have a new release for SV combine and next steps prompt for create. All right. Use create storybook instead of storybook in it. Okay. This is probably the new CLI for storybook. Print warning if using Node.js version below 18.3. This is because I think, actually, Vite plugin Svelte released last week, and it removed support for Node 18.3. So update your node if you have. And by the way, and I know Stanislav that you are an avid VPSer. So that might actually affect you. I don't think it will affect you because you are not using Nixpax, right? Because Coolify, which is what I use because I'm a VPSer noob, so I use Coolify, and it's using Nixpax under the hood. And the latest version of the official image for Nixpax actually use a Node version that is one patch before the last supported for SvelteKit. And so if you try to build your application with Nixpax, you need to specify a specific hash for a third-party thing, which is a bit unfortunate. I hope that we can get it fixed.
It's a discussion for another day, but I have never been a super big fan of Nixpax. I think use the normal Node, the official Node image, and that has always worked amazingly.
Yeah, if you know what you're doing, you definitely if you are like me, you probably. I guess I could probably.
I feel like there's a Docker episode coming up, Paolo.
Yeah,
I
we
think
we can.
Paolo writes his first Docker file. I think.
I do have some experience with Docker, so that's why I say that at the end of the day, probably I could make it work. But to be fair, like not everybody has a Docker knowledge, so
yes,
I can say. Fix Tailwind CSS, ensure Tailwind style sheet is added to pretty.rc. All right. And that's it for SV. And I don't think we have any other thing. Let me see if we have something for the tracker. We still have the old using thing. Add an animation frame in your. I think we have a new thing. Allow runes in Pojo properties. No, I don't think that's it. But we do have a new issue. I don't know if those are tracked. Yeah, exactly. So this is a new proposal that we put out this proposal. So we are probably going to implement this. So it's just something for the future. But so right now we have const, which is A, weird, and B, inconsistent with derived, and C, limiting. And so the proposed solution is to do something like this. So instead of doing at const area box width box height, you can do let area $derived box width box height. So you basically can wrap any JavaScript declaration inside parentheses, and it will work. So it will create an area let, which is a derived. But what this unlocks is also the possibility to do something like this, which is much nicer. So you can actually, with this proposal, you can actually create state within a snippet, and that state is scoped to the snippet. So that's the difference between like global state and so each snippet will have its own state, and you can do whatever you want. So this basically,
I'm not gonna be that guy, but it feels like we're converging. You know, this looks a little bit more like JSX to me, right? And then soon you can write arbitrary JavaScript impressions in there, and then finally you can just write whatever.
Something that like we wanted to avoid this before, because like we didn't want to have multiple scripts in the same component. So like it's still not to that level. Like it's still not, you can put whatever JavaScript expression. So it's basically just for declaration, but this at least unlocks the ability to have declaration state.
It does look nicer, yeah.
It is nicer, yeah. And so yeah, and obviously not state.row and derive.by is also supported, and you can also support multiple declarators, and the migration is also pretty easy. So yeah. So, and again, scoping would work the same. So basically it's scoped within the div, basically. But this would be an error because you have like let one and let one. Yeah, and so declaration should precede usage. So you cannot do a and then let a is equal to 1. And we will probably disallow var because otherwise it would be a mess with scoping. And probably we want to do using. So yeah, I think that's a nice thing. If you have any ideas and any suggestion on this, please go on this issue and comment out. I think we also have a comment. Oh yeah, he's talking about the typing, and you could do something like lose autocomplete. Yes, you can do it. Again, the real problem for the autocomplete of href, I think, is that you cannot have multiple for multiple files. But maybe we can take a look. And by the way, the other problem with actually, yeah, I just thought about another problem, which is way worse. Actually, is that let's go take a look at the documentation for so svelte.dev. Let's go to the playground for the moment. Docs, SvelteKit, and up.paths. The real problem with the autocompletion is that only works for parameterless roots. So if you get these as auto-completion for the href, how do you define the slug? So you would need to change manually the slug, and then it will not be type safe anymore, basically. So that's a bit of a bummer. But yeah, just an extra thing that I noticed. So now, I don't think we have anything else to say here. So let's start to talk about AI. Let me remove my screen so that I can unhide Coromel's screen, because obviously, like, he's the expert here, and so.
Well, I have definitely been hitting my head against the wall, maybe not maybe the most, but a lot. Yeah, so I have a few things that I wanted to like geek out over today. Basically, geek out over all the different AI stuff that's been happening around Svelte, and I have 3 points, and I think I'll start with the first one, and that is the Svelte benchmark. So I noticed like a while ago that it's AI doesn't write Svelte very well, but I couldn't prove it, right? You just
Not yet.
So you couldn't prove it then. So you see that it's like messing up syntax. It's writing half React, half Svelte, and it just doesn't work, right? So I decided to actually like try to make my own like evaluation benchmark for this. So basically ask AI a bunch of questions, get the code back from the AI, and then like actually like run the code and see like, does it work? Does it look okay? Is it well formatted? And then make a score on that. So I can just so you get like a feel for what it looks like. There's a number of different tests that test different runes, because this is really like a problem that started when we got Svelte 5, because the syntax changed a lot.
Yeah.
And so I basically made like tests for all of the like runes that were available then. So like derived, even some sub runes like derived by. And for basically what happens is for each of these tests, we send this task to the AI, and this task is like it's pretty like heavily spec'd. Like it tells you exactly what it needs to build. In this case, it needs to build like a simple derived by to like show the number of words and characters that are put in an input field, and it gives you like the kind of example HTML structure that it expects, and then it tells the AI here like code this out for me. It doesn't tell the AI how the rune works, but it does kind of tell the AI what the result is supposed to look like.
Mm-hmm.
And then we actually run tests on the output that comes from the LLM. So here is the test for this derived test in the benchmark. And so we basically programmatically run the tests, and we get a score. And so if you go here and you press this view samples button, so this is for the 3.5 Haiku model, you can see here that we run the test multiple times, and we get usually different result back, right? Because the AI is not deterministic. You get slightly different things. But then we run the test and we see, do they pass or do they fail? I should also say that if you have any questions, please ask. And Paolo, can you keep a lookout in the chat?
Yeah.
So and by doing this, and by testing multiple times for every problem, we test 10 times per problem, we can get kind of like a score. So if all the tests always passed, it says pass. If all the tests always fail, it says fail. And if some of the like runs succeed, then we get like a partial result. And so if you want to nerd down into this data, I've been running this for a few months now, and I've been adding like all of the different models that have come out. But what I added just recently was this top leaderboard, which makes it, because after a while there was so many models, it's over like 30 now, I think, or almost 30 models.
Yeah.
So it became hard to keep track of like which is the best one. So we kind of just do like an average of the test scores. It's pretty simple, and then we get like a score. So what we can see here is that Opus and Sonnet from the Claude models by Anthropic, they score the best. And then we have the Grok 4 just below them. So almost as good. And what I thought was really fun is that now we actually have an open model that like an open weights model that you can download it, but I don't think you can run it because it has like 1 trillion parameters.
I think it's even more, like it's 2 trillion parameters. Like they're not always activated, but like it's huge.
It's like 1 terabyte of data just to download the model. But somewhere in there is like a little section, and it knows Svelte 5 pretty well.
That's nice.
So that's pretty cool. And it's also much, if you compare to the pricing, which would be cool also to have here. But this model is like 10 or 20 times cheaper than
that's nice. I think you can get the pricing from OpenRouter. Maybe I don't know if they have also the official pricing from Anthropic. Maybe they do.
Actually, I talked to this very nice person whose name I forgot, who runs this page called Ranked AGI, and he actually added SvelteBench here, so you can like filter by most popular, the best score for SvelteBench, and then you can also in here you can see the costs. Here you see the inputs and outputs. Then you see that. So Opus is $4 in, $75 out, and Kimi is 60 cents in, $2.5 out. So
and it's almost as good.
Yeah,
but even if it's you're probably gonna pay extra for the energy and space that you are.
But even if it takes it twice as long to get to the right result, it's still much cheaper if you compare it. So that is something, and you can, and after that it's kind of like a toss up. There's some Gemini in here. There is some older Claude models. There's like a Mistral model in here. So I would, I'm sure we can put some links in the description later for these this episode. So if you want to see all the models, you can check on the link. It's all, this whole benchmark is open source. You can go to GitHub and see all the tests and everything.
Let me add the link to
now. I'm gonna keep testing models. If you have some models that you want to see tested, just at me on Blue Sky, and I'll try to get them tested as long as they're on open.
Did you already test the new one from Coder 3?
Yeah, I did. It did really poorly, unfortunately. That's the thing is like, so I think it was this one, the Quen 3 Coder. I mean, it's not the worst, but you can do a lot better.
Yeah.
So, and then what I think is funny is actually when you look at the samples is to see like how the different samples failed. Because like here, for example, it I guess it put like a dollar sign.
Yeah.
It created a derived probably, and then it let's see. Yeah, it created the derived by, but then it used dollar count like a store. In the template part, and that obviously doesn't work. So there's a lot of these small issues. Also, what's funny is like some of these like really bad models, they will just like make up their own syntax.
We could take inspiration from
some of these are so bad, like I don't even know like which to show, but some of them are really bad, and it's quite funny to see. Yes, this is not so fun. Cannot bind to constant, but I've seen some really cool like potential syntax for Svelte 6 in here. I think this can be useful. Okay, any questions about the benchmark? Because otherwise, I'm gonna.
I think this is all pretty clear.
Okay, great. So I'll jump to the next topic, which is the llms.txt file. So back in advent of Svelte, so that was 6 months ago, that was a long time ago, we got this docs for LLMs, and this is basically like a big assortment of different text files that basically automatically like put together all of the documentation that exists, and this is not the right file, and then just like have it in a huge text file, and then you can add this to your AI, and the AI will get like some extra information, even if it's the AI is out of date. Like in SvelteBench, we are not adding any extra context. The AI needs to know our Svelte 5 already to kind of place here. If we would add context, it would work much better.
That would also be nice, like to have a separate LLM, a separate benchmark for.
I did run one, like here is like an old one that I ran. It doesn't have all the models, but you can see here, and it doesn't have the top list, but you can see here that a lot of these models do fairly well. Like O3 had really bad results, but here it does pretty well. I don't know if I want to keep running it because it's quite expensive to run it.
Yeah, I can imagine.
LLMs.txt, and also like they all do pretty well if you have the LLMs.
Yeah.
But what I wanted to talk specifically about is that since then, since the default LLMs came out, there's a new LLMs small, and this one is partly at least handwritten by
I think by
Daniel,
Simon, right?
Simon, yes, Simon went in and actually like handcrafted this LLMs file. So this one is really good for if your model maybe can't handle that much context. This one is really good because it is quite small.
Distilled.
I think it's like 50 kilobytes or something in size. So that's number one thing that I wanted to kind of show. And the second thing is that I also have this site where I have been. Well, this was actually the like kind of testing ground for the official llms.txt, where I kind of built this as a prototype, the same thing on this site, and then I ported it to the official site with some help from Rich and others. And so I'm kind of, this site's kind of like me trying to like push it a little bit and try out new things. And so one of the things that I added to this site is these distilled presets. And so what this distilled presets is, I mean, we have basically the same ones almost as the official one, like the medium preset is the same one as the LLMs medium here, and the large is the one that is LLMs full. But I also added these distilled presets, and the way they work is that we actually, for each documentation section on the site, we go to an LLM and we say, hey, you need to like shorten this down for me and return like only the very most important things on this in this documentation, and skip all the chaff and all the like unnecessary things. And by doing this, we can get the documentation size down, because so if you compare, for example, the medium preset is like 535 kilobytes. That's quite a lot. That's almost half a megabyte. The distilled one, which is the same content, more or less, as the medium preset, is 147 kilobytes. And that is both Svelte and SvelteKit. And there's, of course, also separate just for Svelte, 81 kilobytes. Right now, it changes, obviously, with the documentation. And for SvelteKit, it's 66 kilobytes. So if you compare this to the one that Simon handcrafted, these are a little bit larger, but they probably also like have more stuff because every page is in there in some form. And I actually made a little comparison tool that, I mean, this is just for absolute nerds, like because this one will actually show you the like original content and what the distilled version that the AI produced shows for the same content. And here you can kind of, I mean, this is more like a debug tool. Let's say you find that, damn, this one feature doesn't work, then you can go to that documentation page and see like, okay, why does the distilled content not have this information, and try to make like a better distillation prompt. But yeah, you can see here that the it cuts about on average like half the size off of the.
That's very nice.
Yeah. Cool. Any questions about this one?
No, I think we are.
Okay, then I want to go to the next thing, which is MCPs. So if you don't know, or maybe have only heard the word, is like, how would you describe it, Paolo? It's like API for LLMs.
Yeah, it's a way so that like, and not really the LLMs, but the MCP clients, which is Claude, Copilot, and stuff like that, can interact with. It's basically like the example that I made is, imagine that like since like LLMs have a limited context, because like their context stop at the day they stop the training. If you ask them something that is outside of that range, like what's the weather like now, they have no way of knowing it. You can fix this by telling the LLM what's the context. So you can say, hey, outside is sunny, it is like 35 degree, And then you can ask, like, what's the weather like? And they will know what's the weather like. But obviously that makes no sense, because if you already know, you will not ask. But what you can do is that you can have a program that it's there, and he has knowledge about what's the weather like, because maybe he has an API and he's listening to specific message that the LLM can send. And so you can say, okay, when the LLM sends this message, invoke this do this API call and give me the result back. And so that's how you add context to the LLM. I mean, it's not only that, that's just tool calling. So you can also add resources, for example, that is
and we're gonna get into that a little bit. But so like, what does this look like for Svelte? First of all, what to me took a while to understand is that MCP is like a feature of the client you're using.
Yeah.
So it's a feature of, like, let's say if you're using Cloud Code, then Cloud Code has MCP. If you're using a GitHub Copilot, then it's the Copilot that you need to, like, set.
It is technically, like, especially later, like it almost also like a feature of LLMs, because like newer LLMs are specifically trained to use
to call tools.
MCP. Yeah, exactly.
So what does this actually look like? Well, let me show you like a few demos. So here I am in the Claude desktop client, and there's also two kinds of MCPs. I'm not going to go too deep into it. There's one that you run on your own computer, usually like an npx command, and there are like remote MCPs, and they've lately kind of been more popular because it's much easier to set them up. I'm going to show you how to do that. So the remote ones are basically just like it just makes an HTTP request in a simplified way to some external server, and then it gets a response from there. So on this site that I made here, this little like SvelteKit documentation site, there is now like a block here with MCP integrations. Maybe you can share the link, Paolo, to the site for those who want to try it. And here you can find how to add the this Svelte MCP for different clients. So like, for example, now I'm using Cloud Desktop, and it basically, all you need, which this is what's so cool, you don't need to have Node installed, you don't need to have Python installed. All you need to do is like configure one URL, and then you got it working. So if we go to the Cloud desktop, you go to settings, and then you go to this tab called connectors. And all you need to do is press add custom connector, you give it a name, you copy this URL, you press add. I've already added it, it's up here. And then, but then you're done. And now you can use it. So like, what does that look like? Well, let's say I want to like, for example, what is it? Is it the inspect rune is something that the LLMs do really badly, because it's not really, like, it came a little bit later and it's a little bit outside training data. So what if I go like this? Tell me about the inspect rune in Svelte 5. And then up here, I'm going to make sure that I have it enabled here. So I have it enabled. And then now, hopefully, it should be like smart enough to actually, with demos, they always work. It should be smart enough to actually call this MCP and get the documentation for the inspect rune.
Maybe.
Yeah, it's thinking. Okay, so there we go. So now first it lists all the documentation sections, and then after that, hopefully it's going to actually get the documentation for the inspect rune, and you can see it kind of here. It invokes get documentation with $inspect for the section. And here we go. We got the result. And what's so great about this is that this is always up to date, right? So this never goes out of date. This doesn't rely on training. This is just like what you said, like with the weather, the LLM can get the data like in real time. Yes. So what we have now in this MCP is like we have these tools. So we have basically like the LLM can find all of the sections of documentation and get it. And then we also have these resources that you talked about, Paolo. There's actually a bunch of stuff, like, I don't know, you could, this is like its own protocol. Like this tool is like the MCP inspector. it's basically like a web, what is it called? Like dev tools for MCPs.
Yeah.
And there's like a bunch of stuff. There's like this thing called resources, where you can add basically like anything. Like if you keep track of like cats, you would add like each cat as a resource, and then you could like include that as a prompt to the LLM. There's also templates that kind of create predefined like prompts for like things you want to do. There's the tools. Yeah, those are it, right? Prompts and
prompt is the one that you were talking about. Like template is just like if you have a list of resources and you want to like have an ID, for example. So.
Yeah, but okay, this is extremely abstract, so I'm going to just show how it works instead, because it is very like for me. I just didn't understand it at all until I actually saw what it looked like inside the UI. So, for example, the tools that the AI has access to is here, and the tools the AI chooses when to use the tools.
Yeah,
it's not you. You don't say. I mean, you can say use get documentation. If you don't, the AI can choose to use it itself. Resources you have to add to the conversation. Resources and templates, and so what we have here is, let's say we want to do this and get the documentation for inspect using a resource. I will just search for inspect here. It finds it. I click the button, and then we will see that the inspect documentation has been added to our context. As in this case, it looks like a file. But this is just how the UI of Cloud Desktop exposes it. It can look different in your UI. So this is so now we can say the same thing, like what's inspect, and it's going to obviously answer because it has the inspect documentation right here. Another thing that we added is like a few presets. So for example, we have this one called Svelte Core, and this is a preset that has basically all of the Svelte 5 stuff. So let's say you're doing like a Svelte 5 task, you're using a model that's maybe not so good at Svelte 5. Now you just injected all of the like important Svelte 5 runes knowledge into the LLM, and you can do the same here for SvelteKit. There's like I think there's core and advanced, and core is kind of like the basic features, and advanced is more like for SvelteKit it's like adapters, and for Svelte I'm not actually sure what the advanced one is, but I guess like special elements like Svelte bound. So like I mean this is not perfect, but this is more, we're like it's an experiment and we want to see like if this is useful. And then finally, there's also this thing called, it's still prompts, but you can also make a prompt that like tells the AI how to build something. So we made this prompt called Svelte Developer, and this prompt actually takes a parameter, which is like, what task do you want it to do? So I can say like, build my next $1 million SaaS with Svelte 5, invent an idea. And when I press add prompt here now, it's gonna actually all this text, it comes from the MCP, and it tells the LLM like which tools to call, when, like what kind of feedback to ask for from the user, etc. And now I can just press the button, and while we talk, it's gonna build your
next million idea,
next $1 million LLM. Yeah.
You need to share like at least 50% with me because you did it live on this week as well. So
residuals for Svelte Society, of course. So so now we kicked it off, and we see that it lists all the sections of documentation. It decided to get some documentation here for stuff that it wants to use, like state, derived, effect, state management, form actions. So now we're like injecting all of that state into the LLM, and it called it again for some reason with some other. And what do you think it's gonna? What do you think it's gonna build, Paolo? What is the $1 million?
Probably a chat app for. Given the track record, probably a chat app. It's using React, so that's nice.
Oh no. You see, like I thought the demos went so well.
Like we had to stop when we had the time to do it.
Svelte. It's just that in Claude desktop specifically, it's very steered towards React because it wants to build these artifacts, and so they have hard coded in the system prompt.
A lot of LLMs do that, and I hate it from the bottom of my soul. I just hate the fact that everybody has agreed that React is the standard, and you need to do that.
It is really dumb. Now I feel like it's doing it in HTML instead. Sometimes it's just not the right day, and you have to try it again. But that's it basically. Yeah, those are the improvements. So for the MCP, I've tried it both in Cloud Desktop, but you can of course also use it in Cloud Code, which is a lot of people use Cloud Code, and there is on the site there is a one-liner here that you can that you add. You just call this one time in your project, and you'll get a little config file that will have this defined already the next time you load it up. And if you're using GitHub Copilot or a client or something else, there's a bunch of different clients here that you can choose from.
And by the way, we are also kind of working. I mean, for the moment, not really, but there is a plan to actually ship an official MCP server that will probably be based on Stanislav one, but that will also have a bunch of other features. I already have some ideas, so we'll see.
We're talking about a lot of stuff. We talked about the auto fixers, so
exactly.
Submit the code, and then we will actually run the code and return back here are the errors. On
I also want to do something like static analysis on the generated code to steer the AI to write idiomatic code. My idea is something I can analyze the code, and I can say, okay, you're assigning state within an effect. Don't do that ever, please. If you do it, I'll kill the whole world so that the LLM cannot do it anymore.
Yeah, and there's a bunch of different. Obviously, we could also do now that the LLM is kind of responsible for fetching the right documentation sections, but we could try to be smarter about that. There is an MCP called Context 7, I think. That kind of has documentations for Svelte as well, and they use a slightly different approach. Basically, you just call their MCP with your task, and it tries to find the relevant section using some sort of semantic search. The downside with this one is kind of it's not open source, and maybe it's gonna get paid one day. We don't know, right? So we don't want people to have to pay to get Svelte documentation. So that's why we're trying to make something that is going to be free and open source, and hopefully also official at some point, even though very early. So if this sounds interesting to you, please feel free to join the kind of discussions.
Reach out to us because we are looking at how to improve the AI experience in Svelte. So reach out and you can collaborate with us.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Thank you very much, Stanislav, both for the work that you do and you did for AI, and in general, to co-host with me today. And thank you guys for showing up. And I hope that you learned something, and I'll see you guys next week.
Thanks, Paolo.
Bye.
Bye.